President Trump is once again lashing out over his 2020 election loss. In a Truth Social post today, Trump making unfounded claims about the 2020 White House race and going on the attack against former President Biden, saying Biden was grossly incompetent and the 2020 election was a total fraud, going on to call for a special prosecutor to be appointed. Joining me now is The Hill's Brett Samuels. Brett, it seemed like a somewhat random social media post by the president. There's a possibility the U.S. could strike Iran. We're weeks away from the deadline for trade deals, with only two signed by China and the UK. And Trump still hasn't negotiated a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. Why call for an investigation now, or is this a distraction?
Yeah, I think this is a case where, President Trump, it's possible he saw something on TV or coverage of sort of what was happening at the border that set this off. But, we've seen in his first few months in office here that President Trump, that former President Biden is never really far from President Trump's mind. He likes to fall back on criticism of his predecessor, sort of attack his predecessor, really, for any given reason. So certainly the White House has been eager to promote these border figures, to tout that border crossings or the release of migrants into the U.S. who had crossed the border are way, way down from the Biden administration. So, I think that sort of led to this potentially. But as you said, Judy, certainly there's a lot going on in the world, and this in theory doesn't seem like much of a priority for a lot of Americans.
Well, the president just posted today. What could we see play out here? Has there been any serious discussion by the Trump administration to investigate Trump's claim of massive and overwhelming evidence the election was a fraud?
Yeah, I think this is one of those cases where it kind of depends how willing the Justice Department is to go along with these allegations from President Trump. The 2020 election has been, it's been litigated. It was litigated at the time in a literal sense because the Trump campaign and its allies brought these lawsuits that were dismissed, in a number of states, a number of battleground states. This has sort of been covered repeatedly as far as these claims of fraud. But at the end of the day, if Trump is calling for a special prosecutor, I think it depends whether the Justice Department and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, are kind of willing to indulge this and appoint a special prosecutor to appease the president here and sort of give him what he wants in looking into this further.
I want to talk to you a little bit about immigration. Trump also posting there have been 0 border crossings so far this month. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so, it may come as no surprise to folks that the president is sort of exaggerating this a bit. It's not exactly that no individuals have come across the southern border. This is more relating to the number of migrants who are apprehended at the southern border, and then released into the U.S. So that figure that they're talking about from the Biden administration, they like to highlight that the Biden administration, that this many migrants, or tens of thousands of migrants in this case, in a month at times, would come across the border, be sort of apprehended by Border Patrol, and then released into the U.S. for a hearing at a later date. The Trump administration has touted that they're no longer releasing these folks into the United States. So that's more what this figure pertains to, not necessarily that no individuals have even come to the southern border and crossed the southern border at any point.
Polls continue to show that border security and immigration are Trump's strongest policies with voters, but he recently announced he's ordering ICE agents to step up efforts in cities run by Democrats, such as Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. Could that move potentially backfire if ICE agents stay away from red states where voters largely support Trump's policies and instead target blue states where voters are protesting the scope of these deportations?
Yeah, I think it is an interesting question that's worth watching. Is obviously we saw how this played out in Los Angeles, where there were these demonstrations that gathered national attention. If you see sort of similar backlash in Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, these big Democratic run cities, whether that sort of generates backlash to Trump's immigration policies. I think, as you said, Judy, this is an issue the White House is very comfortable with. They feel like this is what voters wanted. They wanted this aggressive immigration policy, these aggressive deportations. So they feel like they're on sort of strong footing here with how they're approaching this. The other question is, whether the Trump administration continues to also deport, day laborers, farm workers, migrants who work at hotels, in the hospitality industry. If they continue aggressive deportations there, it could impact the economy. So it is sort of, I think, this delicate balance the Trump administration may need to strike here to avoid some kind of backlash, whether it's through the economy or through protests across the country.
Always insightful. Brett Samuels, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Judy. Appreciate it.